This tutorial video is to explain switch accessibility on iOS 7 on the iPad 2 and up. This accessibility is great for people with cognitive or motor impairments that need to use an external switch in order to manipulate the iPad, or to have some auto scanning, or to use their head movements to activate certain gestures on the iPad. The first thing we're going to do is show how to connect a Bluetooth switch to the iPad. So you can see here on my iPad I have my Bluetooth on and it's searching for the devices. Right now I'm using a green small jelly bean switch with the RJ tablet switch interface. See where it says AirTurn 105V? That is the switch interface. It says not paired, so I'm going to select it. You can see now that it is connected. If you look at the eye here, we can forget that device. Now my switch is ready to be used with the iPad in apps or on the screens using different commands and gestures. So now that that's done, we're going to go in and show you how to set up the switch settings. From here, I'm going to go back to General. I'm going to go to Accessibility, and I'm going to go all the way down to Physical and Motor, where I see Switch Control. And I'm going to touch Switch Control. From here, I can activate the switch that we just connected via Bluetooth. I'm going to select Switches. I'm going to say to add a new switch. I'm going to select External, and it says activate your external switch. I do that by clicking the switch, and now it's asking me to give it a name. I'm just going to name this green. I'm going to save it, and now from here I need to give the command for what I want to be done when that switch is activated. It can be used to scan items on the apps, in various apps that are accessible via switch, or the iPad screen, but you could also access the system settings using the switch if need be. So we can set it up to do either or. I'm going to have the switch do select the item. I would go back to switch control, and I'm going to activate, which mine already is, auto scanning for the switch control. So that means it's going to automatically scan everything as it goes through. I can turn switch control on and you can see what this will look like. It says switch control changes for the gestures used. So as it selects the point, I click my switch. I can now switch for different things that I want to do on the iPad. If I just say OK, now you can see the switches going through each box. And if I wanted to select this box, I click and then it's going to do this, and I can turn my Bluetooth, and then it gives me some other options. Like I can go home and it would take me to the home page, and now I can switch and I can scan. And if I want to go to Chrome, let's go back to tap. I'm going to tap it, then it opens up Chrome. I have my different things that I can do. And for this purposes, I'm going to go back to Home. I'm going to go back to Settings. I'm going to go back to General. I'm going to make sure I do tap. I'm going to go back to Accessibility after it goes through this rotation. Go down. And so this is just scanning through on the iPad. I can also just use my finger to do the different things, even with the auto scanning on. Come down, switch control, and turn the switch control off, and that would stop the switch. You can change how quickly you want the switch to scan. If you want it to pause on the first item, how many loops that you want it to do. Do you want it to automatically be tap? So if we do auto tap, that means when it's enabled, when you select it, it automatically taps the screen instead of you going through the box that you had seen where it says tap, select, home, all those things, you could do an auto tap. You can hold how long do you want it to hold. You can ignore the repeating. So you can turn sound effects on, turn speech on, use that in setting up your switch. So if I wanted it to auto tap, so when I tapped it selected the item, I can go to auto tap and I can turn auto tap on. You can even change for the duration for that. I could change the loops, how many loops do I want it to go through, and various other things. So if I was to turn the switch control on, now when it started scanning, when I hit it and I select it, it's automatically selecting it. That menu is not coming up. So you take some of that away. You don't need, if you have somebody who just needs it very simplified, so you can have it do the auto tap. The other settings that you can do is the hold duration, and this is in switch stabilization. That actually tells you how long the switch has to be held before it's activated, before the switch recognizes that's what you're doing. That is something, if depending on if you have somebody that has a very strong touch or just kind of hits things, you can have it, they have to keep their hand on it for a certain amount of time before it activates the action that you want it to activate. What you can do is you can put sound effects so that you would get a click sound as the cursor moves across the screen. So if somebody needs some feedback, that would be good for them. You can also get some speech feedback. It would read what is being highlighted. You can change the cursor to a larger cursor for someone who might need that. I'm going to turn the speech on to give you some idea. I'm going to do the speech sound effects, and I'm going to leave my cursor color as blue. So now I'll show you what it looks like with those other features turned on. So I'm going to go to my switch control. So now you can see it's blue.
Airplane notification general through iCloud through Safari switch control switches auto scanning time hold duration gliding cursors sound effects to accessibility.
Okay, so you get the idea of what you can do. Now you can see that that went very quickly, and someone that you're working with may need it to go much slower. So that's where you can adjust the auto scanning time, and you can change the speed in which the cursor moves around the screen. So that would be good for certain individuals. Will need it faster, some will need it slower. So you can actually make this very individualized for whatever individual you are working with. When we turn on the speech, it's also good for those students with visual impairments, and it's using the same voice that's used in the voiceover feature in the vision accessibility control. Turn the speech on, you can also change the speaking rate, and that might be better if it's slowed down for certain individuals. The best thing I can suggest is that you need to play with these settings with the individual and fine-tune them for them to make sure that it's working for them at the right speed, the right amount of loops, the sound effects if they need it, and everything else. So it's a good piece here just to, work with it yourself for a little bit, and then go in with that individual and just vary each of the settings till you get the one that makes them most comfortable in using the switch. What's nice about the iOS 7 switch accessibility is it does not limit you to just one switch. In the switches, when you go to add a new switch, you can also add a screen and the camera as a switch. So when you choose the screen as a switch, you can have it perform whatever action you would like. I'm going to have it do stop scanning. So if I go back to switch control, I'm actually going to turn off the speech and the sound effects just to give you an idea. So what will happen is if when I turn switch control on, it's going to go, but if I touch the screen, it's going to stop the scanning. Okay, so that's how you would use that second switch. So basically you can use the external switch, you can use the screen as a switch, and the last thing you can use is the camera as a switch. If I say add a new switch and I say camera, and I'm going to say my left head movement, and if I was going to move my head to the left, I would say that's going to bring me to my notification center. And let's see what that looks like. So actually I'm going to start this screen here, and if it can't see my head, it will tell me. But if I move my head to the left, you can see that my notification center came up. So then I can actually say okay, do whatever I need to do. So again, all I did was move my head to the left and my notification center came up. So now I need to use the scan to get back, scanning the page, go to my accessibilities, and it's going to shut off. So you can actually do that. So the other thing you can do, if I added switches, I can add a new switch, camera, right head movement, and if I make a right head movement, I could say that it's going to increase the volume. Okay, so let's go back and see what that looks like. You just have to make sure that the camera can see your face. So if I turn the scanning on, turn my head to the right, you can see where I can increase the volume. If I turn my head to the left, it's going to bring up the notification center. So you can manipulate those to maybe do things that the person does all the time so that can help them. And each time I turn my head, it keeps increasing the volume with each head movement to the right. So that, and if I had decrease being going the other way, so I can go either way. So you can see right now, every so often tells me my face is too far away. So I have to make sure that I'm close enough for it to see me. So I'm going to wait till the notification center goes away. I'm going to keep my head still so that it's not going to activate anything else. Now remember, we told it can go through 4 loops. So if you don't want it to go through as many loops before it stops, then you can shorten the number of loops that it would go through. Some people would need longer, some people need less. So that brings me back. I can click switch and turn the switch control off. So you can see that you can really, really accessorize this for some of your students. There are some apps that work with the switches besides just the iPad itself. Some of those apps I have in a switch activated folder. So here you can see Smarty Pants, Annie Maggie's Recipes, Choose It, and Maze's Light are switch accessible apps that you can use. There are more out there, and more are being released now that this is a feature of the iPad. So you keep your eye out. Just do a Google search for switch activated iPad apps, and you'll start to get some out there. But in order to use a switch to control the overall iPad, this is a great start, and I think you'll just see improvements from there. And you really do have a lot of flexibility in making this an individual's iPad and using the switch the way they need it. Everybody's going to have a different thing they need. Somebody needs to go faster, some need speech, some need auditory feedback. So this just gives you the option to do it in a variety of ways. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, you can always email me.